Willow Harper stared at the rejection email on her phone and felt the familiar knot of fear tighten in her stomach, not because her gallery application had been denied, but because she knew Marcus would find out and the threats would escalate again. Her ex-boyfriend had made it clear that if she continued pursuing her career as an art curator, there would be consequences. The slashed tires last week had been just the beginning. The police took her statement, but said they needed proof, evidence, something concrete to tie Marcus to the vandalism. Meanwhile, Willow lived in constant anxiety, jumping at shadows and checking over her shoulder every time she left her small apartment in downtown Boston. Her best friend Sarah had been insistent about hiring protection. "You cannot keep living like this," Sarah had said over coffee that morning. "I know someone who runs a security company. Let me make a call." Willow had reluctantly agreed, though the cost made her wince. Her salary at the Riverside Gallery was decent but not extravagant, and private security was expensive. Still, she valued her safety more than her savings account. That was how she found herself sitting in a small office on Newberry Street at 3 in the afternoon, waiting to meet the bodyguard Sarah had arranged. The receptionist had been vague about details, saying only that someone would be with her shortly. The door opened and Willow looked up, expecting to see a burly, intimidating figure in a dark suit. Instead, she found herself staring at a man who looked like he had walked off the pages of a fashion magazine. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair that was perfectly styled yet somehow looked effortlessly casual. His eyes were a striking gray blue, and he wore jeans and a black Henley that showed off an athletic build. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that immediately put her on edge, not from fear but from an awareness she had not felt in months. "Willow Harper." His voice was deep and smooth. "Yes," she stood, extending her hand. "You are Vincent Remington." His handshake was firm, warm. "I understand you need protection." Willow blinked. This man was supposed to be her bodyguard. He looked too polished, too refined. She had expected someone who looked like they had been in the military or law enforcement. Vincent seemed to read her hesitation. "I know I do not look like typical security, but I assure you I am more than qualified. Former Marine, 10 years of experience in executive protection, extensive training in defensive tactics and threat assessment." "It is not that," Willow said, though it partly was. "It is just, can I afford you?" Sarah set this up, but she did not mention rates, and I am not exactly wealthy. Something flickered in Vincent's expression, too quick for her to identify. "Let me worry about that. Right now, I want to hear about your situation. Tell me everything about Marcus and why you think you are in danger." They sat, and Willow found herself opening up in a way she had not expected. Maybe it was his calm demeanor or the way he listened without judgment, but she told him everything. The relationship that had turned controlling, the breakup 6 months ago, Marcus's inability to accept it was over, and the escalating harassment that had culminated in property damage and threatening messages. Vincent took notes on a small tablet, his expression growing darker as she spoke. "Has he ever been physically violent with you?" "No," Willow said, "but he has a temper. He punched a wall once during an argument. I think that was when I knew I needed to leave." "Good instincts." Vincent set down the tablet and looked at her directly. "Here is what I recommend. 24/7 protection for the next month, minimum. I will stay close, assess the threat level, and we can determine if we need to involve law enforcement more aggressively. I will also work with a colleague to install a better security system at your residence." "I live in a 1-bedroom apartment," Willow said. "It is not exactly large. Where would you stay?" "I will sleep on your couch or get a hotel nearby, whatever makes you most comfortable." Willow bit her lip. The thought of having a stranger in her space was unsettling, but not as unsettling as Marcus showing up unannounced. And the cost? $500 a week. She nearly choked. That was impossibly low for round-the-clock protection. That cannot be right. I looked up rates before coming here. That is less than a tenth of what most companies charge. Vincent's expression remained neutral. I have my reasons for offering a reduced rate. Consider it a professional courtesy. Willow wanted to argue, wanted to understand what those reasons were, but the relief of affordable protection overrode her skepticism. Okay, when can you start? Right now. Let me drive you home and we will get started on securing your apartment. The next few hours passed in a blur. Vincent drove a sleek black Range Rover that was far nicer than any car Willow had ever been in. He surveyed her apartment building with a critical eye, noting the lack of security cameras and the easily accessible fire escape outside her window. By evening, he had called in his colleague, a gruff but efficient man named Tony, who installed new locks, window sensors, and a camera system that connected to Willow's phone. You will get an alert any time someone approaches your door or windows, Tony explained. The footage saves to the cloud, so even if someone damages the cameras, you will have evidence. Willow felt tears prick her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. Thank you, both of you. Vincent waved off her gratitude. It is my job. Now, do you have plans for dinner or should we order something? They ended up ordering Thai food, and as they ate on her small couch, Willow found herself studying Vincent. He was unlike anyone she had met before. Calm and competent, but there was something else beneath the surface. A sadness, maybe, or a weariness that suggested he understood what it was like to be afraid. Can I ask you something? She said as she finished her pad thai, of course. Why security work? You seem like you could do anything. Vincent was quiet for a moment. I like helping people. It is straightforward. You have a problem, I solve it. No politics, no games. That is not the whole story, Willow said gently. He met her eyes and she saw the guard drop just a fraction. No, it is not, but it is the version I am comfortable sharing right now. She nodded, respecting his boundaries. Fair enough. They fell into an easy rhythm over the next few days. Vincent was a constant presence, always alert but never intrusive. He drove her to work at the gallery, waited in the car or nearby, and accompanied her home. He was polite to her coworkers, professional with strangers, and surprisingly easy to talk to during their downtime. Willow learned small details about him. He took his coffee black, hated mornings despite waking up at dawn every day, and had an unexpectedly dry sense of humor that caught her off guard more than once. He read voraciously, always carrying a paperback in his jacket pocket, and he knew an impressive amount about art, which surprised her. I went through a phase in college, he admitted when she questioned him about his knowledge of Impressionism. Thought I might minor in art history. What did you major in? Business. And then you joined the Marines. It is complicated. Willow was beginning to realize that Vincent was full of complications, layers she wanted to understand. It was dangerous, this curiosity, this attraction that was growing despite her best efforts to keep things professional. He was her bodyguard, someone she was paying to protect her. Getting involved would be a terrible idea, but it was hard to ignore the way her heart jumped when he smiled, or the warmth that spread through her chest when he remembered small details about her preferences. He brought her favorite coffee without asking, knew when she needed space, and seemed genuinely interested in her work at the gallery. On the 5th day, Marcus made his move. Willow was at the gallery discussing an upcoming exhibition with her boss when Vincent appeared at her side, his expression tense. We need to leave, now. What? Why? Marcus is outside. He has been watching the building for the past 20 minutes. Fear spiked through her. Did you call the police? They are on their way, but I want you somewhere safe first. Willow's boss, a kind woman named Patricia, immediately agreed. Go, we will handle things here. Vincent guided her out through the back entrance, his hand on her lower back, his body positioned protectively between her and the street. They made it to his Range Rover without incident, but as they pulled away, Willow saw Marcus standing on the corner, his face twisted in anger. He saw us, she whispered. Good. Let him know you are protected. They drove to a cafe across town, and Vincent made her sit away from the windows while he coordinated with the police on his phone. When he finally sat down across from her, his expression was serious. The police are going to pay him a visit, issue a formal warning. If he violates the restraining order you are going to file, they will arrest him. I did not file a restraining order. You are filing one today. I already have the paperwork. Vincent pulled out a folder from his bag. Willow, this is escalating. He is not going to stop unless there are legal consequences. She knew he was right, but the thought of facing Marcus in court, even for a restraining order, terrified her. What if it makes him angrier? That is why I am here. Vincent reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture was so unexpected, so comforting, that Willow felt tears well up. I will not let him hurt you. I promise. They went to the courthouse that afternoon, and Willow filed for an emergency restraining order. The judge granted it immediately based on the evidence of harassment and property damage. As they left the building, Vincent kept his arm around her shoulders, a solid presence that made her feel less alone. That night, back at her apartment, Willow could not stop shaking. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving her exhausted and emotionally raw. She sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Vincent emerged from the kitchen with a mug of tea. Chamomile, it will help you sleep. Thank you. She took the mug, grateful for the warmth. Vincent, I do not know how to repay you for everything you have done. You do not need to repay me. He sat beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. This is what I signed up for. It feels like more than that. He looked at her, and for the first time she saw something unguarded in his expression. Maybe it is. The air between them shifted, charged with an awareness that had been building since they met. Willow knew she should pull back, maintain professional boundaries, but she was tired of being afraid, tired of denying what she felt. Vincent, who are you really? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. What do you mean? You drive a car that costs more than I make in a year. You know about art and literature, and you carry yourself like someone used to being in charge, and you are charging me almost nothing for protection that should cost a fortune. She set down her tea and turned to face him fully. I am not stupid. There is something you are not telling me. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. You are right. I have not been entirely honest with you. Willow's heart sank. Are you even qualified to be a bodyguard? I am. Everything I told you about my background is true. But I left out some details about what I do now. Which is, I run a company. Several companies, actually. Real estate development, private equity, security consulting. I am not just a bodyguard, Willow. I am the CEO of Remington Global. The name hit her like a physical blow. Remington Global was one of the largest private equity firms in the Northeast. She had read about them in the business section of the newspaper. They were worth billions. You are a billionaire, she said slowly. Yes. And you have been pretending to be my bodyguard, not pretending. I am protecting you, but yes, I have been less than forthcoming about my circumstances. Willow stood, anger and confusion warring inside her. Why would you do this? Vincent stood as well, his expression earnest. Because Sarah is my sister. Willow froze. What? Sarah Remington. She changed her name back to her maiden name after her divorce, but she is my younger sister. When she called and told me about your situation, about how terrified you were and how you could not afford proper protection, I could not just recommend someone. I had to help myself. So this is charity. You felt sorry for me. No. Vincent stepped closer. At first, maybe I was just helping out my sister's friend, but the moment I met you, Willow, everything changed. You are smart and brave and kind, and you have been dealing with this nightmare with so much grace. I wanted to help because you deserve to feel safe. And yes, I have money, more than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Why would I not use it to help someone who needs it? Willow's anger deflated, replaced by a confusion that was almost worse. You should have told me. I know. I am sorry. I thought if you knew who I was, you would refuse my help, and I could not stand the thought of you facing Marcus alone. She sat back down, processing this revelation. Vincent Remington. She had been living with a billionaire CEO for almost a week, and she had no idea. It explained so much: the expensive car, the casual confidence, the way he seemed to command respect wherever they went. Are you angry? Vincent asked quietly. I do not know what I am, Willow admitted. Confused, embarrassed maybe. I have been treating you like an employee. You have been treating me like a person, which is more than most people do when they know about the money. He sat beside her again. Willow, I do not want this to change things between us. I am still the same person I was an hour ago. But you are not. You are Vincent Remington, billionaire CEO. I am Willow Harper, gallery worker who cannot even afford a decent security system without help. We are from completely different worlds. So what? That does not matter to me. It should. She looked at him, seeing him differently now. The perfectly styled hair, the expensive clothes she had mistaken for good taste on a budget, the ease with which he navigated the world. It all made sense now. Vincent, I cannot afford to pay you anything, can I? You have been doing this for free. I have been doing this because I want to. Because when I am with you, I do not have to be Vincent Remington, billionaire. I can just be Vincent, a guy who likes reading on your couch and arguing with you about whether Monet or Renoir was the better painter. Despite everything, Willow felt a smile tug at her lips. It is Monet, obviously. See, this is what I am talking about. You have terrible taste, but I still want to spend time with you. She laughed, and some of the tension eased, but the fundamental truth remained. Vincent was a billionaire and she was not. That kind of gap did not just disappear because they enjoyed each other's company. Over the next week, things shifted between them. Vincent continued to protect her, but there was a new awareness in their interactions. Willow caught herself noticing the way his jaw tightened when he was concentrating, the rare smile that transformed his entire face, the gentle way he handled her when crowds pressed too close. Marcus had gone quiet after the restraining order, which should have been reassuring but instead made Willow more anxious. It felt like the calm before a storm. Vincent seemed to sense her unease. He started staying closer, finding reasons to touch her shoulder or hand, small gestures of comfort that made her heart race. They fell into domesticity that felt both natural and terrifying. He cooked breakfast while she got ready for work, and they spent evenings talking about everything from childhood memories to their dreams for the future. I always wanted to open my own gallery, Willow admitted one night. They were sitting on her small balcony, the city lights spread out before them. Showcase emerging artists, give people a chance who might not get it otherwise. Why have you not done it? Money mostly, and fear. What if I fail? What if I am not good enough? Vincent turned to look at her. You are good enough. I have seen how you talk about art, how you light up when you discuss a new piece. You have the passion and the knowledge. The rest is just logistics. Easy for you to say. You are a billionaire. You can afford to take risks. I was not always wealthy, Willow. My dad worked construction and my mom was a teacher. I built Remington Global from nothing, and I failed more times than I can count before I succeeded. Fear is normal, but it should not stop you from pursuing what you love. She studied him in the dim light. How did you do it? Build your company. Vincent was quiet for a moment. I started with real estate flipping in my 20s, bought distressed properties, fixed them up, sold them for a profit. I saved every penny, reinvested everything, and slowly built capital. Then I started acquiring small businesses, turning them around. It was not glamorous, and there were years when I was not sure I would make it, but I kept going. That must have been lonely. It was. His voice was soft. I dated occasionally, but most women were interested in what I had, not who I was. After a while, I stopped trying. It was easier to focus on work. Willow's heart ached for him. She understood loneliness, the feeling of being seen but not truly known. Is that why you do the security work yourself? To feel normal, partly, but mostly because it reminds me that money is not everything. The look on your face when you felt safe again, that is worth more than any business deal. They were sitting close now, close enough that Willow could feel the warmth radiating from his body. She wanted to close the distance, to kiss him and damn the consequences, but fear held her back. What if this was just a temporary thing for him? What if she was just a distraction from his real life? As if reading her thoughts, Vincent reached over and took her hand. Willow, I need you to know something. What is happening between us, it is real for me. I am not playing games or passing time. I have feelings for you, feelings I have not had for anyone in a very long time. Her breath caught. Vincent, you do not have to say anything, I just wanted you to know. But she did want to say something. She wanted to tell him that she felt the same way, that she looked forward to seeing him every morning and dreaded the day when he would no longer be part of her life. Instead, she squeezed his hand and leaned her head on his shoulder, letting the moment speak for itself. The storm broke 2 days later. Willow was working late at the gallery, preparing for an exhibition opening. Vincent was with her, reviewing security camera footage on his tablet while she arranged paintings. She was so focused on getting the lighting right that she did not hear the back door open. Vincent did. He was on his feet instantly, positioning himself between Willow and the intruder. Marcus stood in the doorway, his face flushed with anger, holding something in his hand that made Willow's blood run cold. A knife. You think you can hide behind a restraining order, Marcus snarled. You think some piece of paper is going to keep me away from you? Vincent's voice was calm but commanding. Marcus, you need to leave. The police are already on their way. I do not care about the police. She owes me an explanation. She owes me. Willow found her voice, though it shook. I do not owe you anything. We are over, Marcus. You need to accept that. Accept it, he laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the gallery. You ruined my life, Willow. You made me look like a fool, and now you are parading around with this guy like I never mattered. Put down the knife, Vincent said, his tone steel. This does not have to end badly for you. Marcus's attention shifted to Vincent, his eyes narrowing. Who are you? Her new boyfriend? You think you are better than me? I think threatening someone with a weapon is a crime, and you are about to make your situation much worse. Marcus moved forward, and everything happened at once. Vincent pushed Willow behind him, dodged the wild slash of the knife, and in one fluid motion, disarmed Marcus and took him to the ground. It was over in seconds, Vincent pinning Marcus face down with practiced efficiency, while Willow called the police with shaking hands. The police arrived quickly, arresting Marcus for violating the restraining order, assault with a deadly weapon, and breaking and entering. As they led him away, Marcus shouted threats and accusations, but Willow barely heard them. She was focused on Vincent, who had a shallow cut on his forearm from the knife. "You are hurt," she said, her voice breaking. "It is nothing." Vincent examined the wound with clinical detachment. "Barely a scratch. You could have been killed. But I was not." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "You are safe. That is all that matters." Willow pressed her face against his chest and let herself break down. All the fear and stress and anxiety of the past weeks poured out in racking sobs. Vincent held her through it all, murmuring reassurances and stroking her hair. When she finally calmed, she pulled back to look at him. "Thank you for everything. You do not have to thank me." "Yes, I do. You saved my life." Vincent cupped her face in his hands, his gray-blue eyes intense. "Willow, I would do it again in a heartbeat. You mean everything to me." And then he kissed her. It was soft and tentative at first, a question more than a statement. Willow answered by wrapping her arms around his neck and kissing him back with all the emotion she had been holding in. He tasted like coffee and safety and home, and she never wanted it to end. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that since the day I met you. Why did you wait? I wanted you to feel safe with me first." "I did not want to take advantage," Willow smiled. "You are too good, you know that. Not good, just hopelessly in love with you," her heart soared. "I love you too, even though you are a billionaire, and that terrifies me," Vincent laughed. "The money is just money, Willow. It does not change who I am." "Does not it, though? You live in a different world than I do." "Then let me bring you into my world, or better yet, let us create a new one together." It sounded impossible, but looking into his eyes, Willow wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe that love could bridge any gap, even one measured in billions. They left the gallery hand in hand, and for the first time in months, Willow felt genuinely free. Marcus was in custody, facing serious charges. Vincent was by her side, and the future suddenly seemed full of possibility. Over the next few weeks, their relationship deepened. Vincent officially moved from her couch to her bed, though he kept his own apartment across town. He introduced her to Sarah, who was delighted that her matchmaking had worked better than she imagined. They went on dates, real dates where Vincent let himself be seen in public with her, and Willow slowly adjusted to the attention that came with dating someone famous. It was not always easy. Photographers occasionally snapped pictures of them, and tabloids speculated about the billionaire CEO and the gallery worker. But Vincent handled it with grace, always protecting her from the worst of it while being open about their relationship. He also took her concerns about the wealth gap seriously. "I do not want you to feel like you are dependent on me," he said one morning over breakfast. "Your independence is part of what I love about you. But how do we make this work? You have private jets and multiple homes. I have student loans and a small apartment." Vincent set down his coffee cup. "What if you let me invest in your dream?" "What do you mean, your gallery?" "Let me be your backer, not as a gift but as an investment. You would have full creative control and any profits would be yours." "I would just be a silent partner." Willow's first instinct was to refuse, but she forced herself to really consider it. This was not charity. Vincent believed in her abilities, was offering her a chance to achieve something she had thought was years away. "I would pay you back," she said firmly. "With interest, if you insist." Vincent smiled. "But I am not worried about the money. I am investing in you, and that is the safest investment I have ever made." They spent the next few months planning the gallery. Willow found the perfect space in the South End, a converted warehouse with exposed brick and spectacular natural light. Vincent helped her navigate the business side, setting up an LLC and handling the financial logistics while respecting her creative vision. The grand opening was on a crisp October evening, 6 months after Marcus's arrest. The gallery, named Harper Arts, showcased 15 emerging artists Willow had been following for years. The turnout exceeded her wildest expectations, partly due to Vincent's connections, but mostly because of Willow's eye for talent and her genuine passion. Vincent stood to the side, watching her work the room with pride evident on his face. She caught his eye across the gallery and mouthed, "Thank you." He just winked and raised his champagne glass in a silent toast. Later that night, after the last guest had left and they were alone among the artwork, Vincent pulled her into his arms. "I am so proud of you. I could not have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. It just might have taken longer, but this gallery, this success, it is all yours, Willow. You earned it." She kissed him, pouring all her gratitude and love into the gesture. "I love you, Vincent Remington. Even though you are annoyingly perfect and obscenely wealthy. I love you too, Willow Harper, even though you are stubborn and refuse to let me spoil you properly. Someone has to keep your ego in check." They stayed in the gallery until dawn, talking about the future and dreaming about what came next. Vincent mentioned wanting to spend more time on philanthropy, and Willow suggested using art as a vehicle for social change. Ideas flowed between them easily, the way they always did. As the sun rose over Boston, painting the gallery walls in golden light, Vincent got down on one knee. Willow's heart stopped. "I did not plan this," Vincent admitted, pulling a ring box from his pocket. "I have been carrying this around for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. But then I realized that every moment with you is perfect. Willow Harper, you have changed my life in ways I cannot begin to explain. You see me for who I am, not what I have. You challenge me and inspire me and make me want to be a better man. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Willow's face as she nodded. "Yes, yes, of course I will marry you." The ring was beautiful, a simple diamond solitaire that caught the morning light. It was elegant without being ostentatious, perfect for her taste. Vincent slid it onto her finger and then stood, sweeping her into a kiss that made her dizzy. "I cannot believe you proposed in my gallery," she said when they broke apart. "Our gallery," Vincent corrected. "And I figured it was appropriate. This is where you really came into your own." It felt right. Willow looked around at the art, the space she had created, and the man who had believed in her from the beginning. It is perfect. They were married in a small ceremony 6 months later, just close family and friends. Sarah was Willow's maid of honor, and she cried through the entire service. Vincent's best man was Tony, the security specialist who had become a good friend. For their honeymoon, Vincent wanted to take her somewhere extravagant, Paris or the Maldives, but Willow chose a small coastal town in Maine. They rented a cottage overlooking the ocean and spent 2 weeks doing absolutely nothing. They read books, took long walks on the beach, and talked about their future. "I want kids," Willow said one evening. They were sitting on the porch, wrapped in blankets and watching the waves. "Eventually." "Not right away, but someday." Vincent pulled her closer. "How many?" "2, maybe 3. I want them to have siblings, to not be lonely." "I can do that." He kissed the top of her head. "I can picture it. Teaching them to swim, helping with homework, attending school plays." "You would be an amazing father." "Only if I have an amazing mother for my children." They tried for a baby a year after the wedding, and Willow got pregnant on the 3rd attempt. Vincent was overjoyed, immediately becoming protective and attentive to the point of being overbearing. Willow had to gently remind him that pregnancy was not an illness. "I know," he said, looking sheepish, "but you are carrying my child. I want to make sure you have everything you need. What I need is for you to relax and let me do things myself sometimes." He tried, though it was clearly difficult for him. When Willow's ankles swelled, he insisted on foot rubs. When she had cravings, he went out at all hours to satisfy them. When she worried about the gallery, he reassured her that everything would be fine. Their daughter, Violet Rose Remington, was born on a sunny day in May. She had Vincent's eyes and Willow's smile, and from the moment she entered the world, she had both parents completely wrapped around her tiny finger. Vincent cried when he held her for the first time, this strong, controlled man reduced to tears by a baby who weighed less than 8 pounds. "She is perfect," he whispered. "Just like her dad," Willow said, exhausted but happy. They brought Violet home to the house they had bought together, a beautiful brownstone in Back Bay that was close to the gallery. Vincent had offered to buy something bigger, grander, but Willow insisted on something comfortable and livable. The brownstone was the perfect compromise, elegant but warm. Parenthood suited them both. Vincent turned out to be a natural, changing diapers and handling midnight feedings with the same focus he brought to business deals. Willow juggled the gallery with motherhood, bringing Violet to work sometimes and relying on a network of support that included Sarah and a wonderful nanny named Grace. 2 years later, their son William Vincent Remington arrived, completing their family. He was calmer than his sister, content to observe the world with serious gray eyes that mirrored his father's. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. The gallery thrived, expanding to a second location in Cambridge. Vincent scaled back his business involvement, hiring more executives so he could spend time with his family. They took vacations, hosted dinner parties, and created a life full of love and laughter. One evening, when Violet was 5 and William was 3, Willow and Vincent found themselves alone in the kitchen after putting the kids to bed. They were cleaning up from dinner, moving around each other with the practiced ease of years together. "Remember when you were my bodyguard?" Willow asked, smiling at the memory. Vincent laughed. "I was terrified you would figure out who I was before I could tell you myself. I should have known. You drove a Range Rover and wore designer jeans. You were too distracted by being afraid of Marcus to notice the details." Willow set down the dish she was washing and turned to face him. "I am glad Sarah set us up." "Me too." Vincent pulled her into his arms. "You know, I went into that meeting planning to assign you to someone else. I was going to recommend a bodyguard from my company and cover the costs anonymously. What changed? I saw you, and I knew that if I let someone else protect you, I would regret it for the rest of my life. Something told me you were going to be important to me." Willow stretched up to kiss him. "Best instinct you ever had." "Second best." The first was kissing you in the gallery that night. They stood together in their kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of the life they had built. Artwork on the walls, toys scattered in the living room, photos of their family everywhere. It was chaotic and beautiful and exactly what Willow had always wanted, even when she did not know she wanted it. Vincent had protected her heart, just as he had protected her body all those years ago. He had shown her what real love looked like, patient and kind and strong. And she had shown him that he was worthy of love for who he was, not what he had. "What are you thinking?" Vincent asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "That I am the luckiest woman in the world." "I would argue that I am the lucky one, but I know you well enough to know you would just argue back." Willow smiled. "You do know me well. I intend to spend the rest of my life getting to know you even better." They finished cleaning the kitchen and headed upstairs, checking on the kids one last time before retiring to their own room. Violet was sprawled across her bed, clutching a stuffed elephant. William was curled up like a little ball, peaceful in sleep. In their bedroom, Vincent pulled Willow close, and she rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. This was home. Not the house or the city or even the family they had created, though those were all part of it. Home was wherever Vincent was, this man who had walked into her life as a protector and stayed as a partner. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," Vincent replied. "Always." Outside, the city hummed with life, but inside, everything was calm. They had built something real and lasting, a love story that had started with fear and transformed into joy. Willow had hired a billionaire as her bodyguard, unaware that he would protect not just her body but her heart forever. And in doing so, she had saved him too, giving him the family and love he had always craved but never thought he deserved. They fell asleep tangled together, dreaming of the future and grateful for the present. Because sometimes, the best love stories start in the most unexpected ways, with a phone call from a worried friend, and a man willing to risk everything for a woman he had yet to meet. And sometimes, those stories end exactly as they should, with two people who found in each other exactly what they had been missing all along. Years continued to pass in that beautiful brownstone in Back Bay. Violet grew into a spirited child who loved painting almost as much as her mother, spending hours at the gallery after school, sketching and experimenting with colors. William became more outgoing as he grew, his serious demeanor giving way to a quick wit that reminded Willow of Vincent in his more unguarded moments. The gallery expanded again, this time to New York, with Willow spending 1 week a month in the city overseeing operations. Vincent always went with her, having restructured his business commitments to prioritize time with his family. He had discovered that delegating was not a weakness but a strength, and that his companies ran perfectly well without his constant oversight. On their 10th anniversary, Vincent surprised Willow with a trip back to Maine, to the same cottage where they had honeymooned. They left the kids with Sarah, who was delighted to spoil her niece and nephew for a long weekend. Sitting on the same porch where they had talked about their future a decade earlier, Willow reflected on how far they had come. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Vincent. "Giving up so much of your business life for us?" Vincent looked at her like she had asked if the sky was green. "Not for a single second. Money is just a tool, Willow. It has no meaning beyond what we give it. But this, us, our family that is real, that is what matters. I know. I just worry sometimes that you gave up too much." "I gave up nothing and gained everything." He took her hand the same way he had that first night on her balcony. "Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions, building wealth for no real reason. You gave me purpose. You gave me love. I would give up every penny if it meant keeping you and the kids." Willow blinked back tears. Even after 10 years, Vincent could still move her with his words. "You are going to make me cry, and I promised myself I would not cry this weekend." Too late. Vincent wiped away a tear that had escaped. "But they are happy tears, right? The happiest." They renewed their vows on the beach the next day, with just a local officiant and the waves as witnesses. It was simple and perfect, a recommitment to the promises they had made 10 years earlier. Afterward, they walked along the shore, talking about the next 10 years and all the adventures still to come. Back in Boston, life continued its beautiful rhythm. The gallery hosted increasingly prestigious exhibitions, and Willow's eye for talent became legendary in the art world. Young artists clamored to be represented by Harper Arts, knowing that Willow's support could launch a career. Vincent divided his time between his reduced business responsibilities and philanthropy work. He and Willow started a foundation focused on arts education in underserved communities, providing supplies, instruction, and opportunities for children who might never otherwise have access to art programs. It combined both their passions and made a real difference in countless young lives. Violet, at age 10, announced that she wanted to be an artist when she grew up. Willow's heart swelled with pride, though she made sure to tell her daughter that she could be anything she wanted, artist or otherwise. Vincent just smiled and started converting one of the spare rooms into a proper art studio for his daughter. William, now 8, developed an interest in building things. He was constantly constructing elaborate structures from blocks or cardboard, displaying an engineering mind that fascinated Vincent. They spent hours together working on projects, Vincent patiently explaining concepts while William absorbed everything like a sponge. On a random Tuesday evening, with the kids doing homework at the kitchen table and dinner cooking on the stove, Willow paused to take in the scene. This was what happiness looked like. Not grand gestures or expensive vacations, though those had their place, but the everyday moments of family life. Vincent came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about? How grateful I am. For you, for them, for all of this." Even when William refuses to eat his vegetables and Violet argues about bedtime, Willow laughed. Especially then. The messy parts are just as important as the perfect parts. You are getting philosophical in your old age. I am 35, not ancient. You are perfect at any age. Vincent kissed her temple. Just like you were perfect at 25 when I met you. I was a mess when you met me. You were brave and strong and doing the best you could in a terrible situation. That is not being a mess. That is being human. Willow turned in his arms to face him. How do you always know the right thing to say? Years of practice. Also, I am just incredibly wise and insightful. She swatted his chest playfully. And modest. That too. They were interrupted by Violet calling for help with her math homework, and the moment passed into the flow of family life. But that was okay. They had thousands of moments, some big and some small, all of them adding up to a life well lived. As the years continued to unfold, Vincent and Willow faced the normal challenges that all families encountered. There were arguments about parenting decisions and stressful periods when work demanded too much. There were health scares, including a cancer diagnosis for Vincent's mother that thankfully turned out to be treatable. There were financial ups and downs in the business world, though Vincent's wealth insulated them from the worst effects. Through it all, they held onto each other and the foundation they had built. When things got tough, they talked. When they disagreed, they compromised. When one of them stumbled, the other was there to catch them. Violet entered high school and became more independent, testing boundaries in the way teenagers do. William grew into a thoughtful young man who surprised them both with his depth of feeling. The brownstone that had once seemed so spacious felt smaller as the kids grew, but it remained filled with love and laughter. On their 20th anniversary, Vincent surprised Willow again, this time with something completely unexpected. He took her to a building in the South End, not far from the original Harper Arts location. "I bought this for you," he said. Willow looked up at the massive warehouse, confused. "Why?" "Because I know you have been talking about wanting to create an arts center. A place where established artists can work alongside emerging ones, where the community can come for classes and events. This is that place." She turned to him, stunned. "Vincent, this must have cost a fortune. I told you, money is just a tool. And I want to use it to help you realize your dreams." He pulled out a set of keys and handed them to her. "Happy anniversary." Willow threw her arms around his neck, overcome with emotion. After 20 years, he could still surprise her, still show her new ways to say "I love you" without words. The Harper Arts Center opened 2 years later, a massive complex that housed studio spaces, galleries, classrooms, and a small theater. It quickly became a hub for Boston's art community, exactly as Willow had envisioned. She spent her days between the original gallery, now run by a talented protege, and the new center, which demanded all her attention and energy. Vincent, now in his mid-50s, had fully transitioned from business mogul to philanthropist. He maintained seats on a few boards and kept his hand in strategic decisions, but his passion was the foundation and the arts center. He loved walking through the building, seeing young artists at work, and knowing that he had helped make it possible. Violet graduated from high school and shocked everyone by deciding to pursue engineering rather than art. "I love painting," she explained to her surprised parents. "But I love building things more. I want to design spaces where art can live." It was perfect for her, combining creativity with technical skill. She headed off to MIT, and though Willow missed her terribly, she was proud of the confident young woman her daughter had become. William followed 2 years later, choosing architecture at Yale. The siblings stayed close despite being at different schools, video chatting regularly and coming home for holidays filled with stories and laughter. With the kids gone, Vincent and Willow found themselves empty nesters, adjusting to the quiet of the brownstone. It was strange at first, the lack of teenage drama and constant activity. But they quickly rediscovered the rhythm they had before children, enjoying long dinners and spontaneous trips. "We should travel more," Willow said one morning over coffee. "See all those places we have been talking about for years but never quite got to." "I thought you would never ask." Vincent pulled out his phone and started researching. Within hours, they had planned a 3-month trip around the world, timed for when the gallery and center could run without them. They went to Paris and Tokyo, Buenos Aires and Cape Town, experiencing different cultures and collecting memories. Willow took thousands of photos, and Vincent bought her small works of art in every city, pieces from local artists that she could display at the gallery. It was one of the best times of their lives, a second honeymoon that reminded them of all the reasons they had fallen in love. When they returned to Boston, tanned and happy, they found that life had continued without them quite nicely. The gallery and arts center had thrived under capable management. Violet and William had both survived their semesters without major disasters, and the foundation had launched 3 new programs in their absence. "I think we are not as indispensable as we thought," Willow joked. "Good," Vincent replied. "That means we can do this again." And they did, making travel a regular part of their lives. They split their time between Boston, where the gallery and center remained their primary focus, and whatever corner of the world called to them. They watched sunsets in Santorini and sunrises in Bali. They explored ancient ruins and modern museums. They lived fully and without regret. Violet graduated from MIT with honors and immediately landed a job at a prestigious architecture firm in Boston. William finished at Yale a few years later and surprised everyone by moving to Los Angeles to work in film production design. Both children were happy and successful, living their dreams in ways that made their parents proud. As Vincent and Willow entered their 60s, they began to think about legacy. The gallery and arts center would continue long after they were gone, ensuring that new generations of artists had opportunities. The foundation was well funded and managed, making real differences in communities across the country. But they wanted to do something more personal, something that would tell their story. Willow wrote a book about building Harper Arts, a memoir that was part business guide and part love story. It became a surprise bestseller, inspiring other women to pursue their dreams despite fear or financial constraints. Vincent supported her throughout the writing and promotion, proud of her willingness to share their journey. For his part, Vincent established a scholarship program for students pursuing careers in the arts, regardless of their financial background. It was fully funded in perpetuity, ensuring that talent would always have a chance to flourish. He named it the Violet and William Remington Scholarship, honoring the two people who had changed his life most profoundly aside from their mother. On their 30th anniversary, they returned once more to Maine, to the cottage that had witnessed so many important moments. This time the whole family came. Violet brought her fiancé, a kind architect she had met through work. William came with his girlfriend, a set designer he had fallen in love with on a film project. Sarah, now in her 60s herself, made the trip with her second husband. They spent a week together, 3 generations united by love and laughter. They told stories and shared meals, played games and took long walks on the beach. It was the kind of family vacation that would be remembered forever, the kind that showed what really mattered in life. On the last night, sitting around a bonfire on the beach, Violet raised her glass. "I want to make a toast to Mom and Dad, who showed us what real love looks like, who built something beautiful together and taught us that it is not about where you start but where you are willing to go. Thank you for everything," William added, "and for teaching us that taking care of each other is the most important thing we will ever do." Willow looked at Vincent, tears streaming down her face. 30 years ago, she had been a terrified woman just trying to feel safe. Now she was surrounded by family, success, and a love that had only grown deeper with time. Vincent squeezed her hand, his own eyes shining with unshed tears. They did not need words. Everything they wanted to say was in that touch, in the way they looked at each other across the fire. Later, alone in the cottage, Willow and Vincent lay in bed together listening to the waves. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Willow asked. "No," Vincent admitted. "I hoped, but I did not dare imagine. You exceeded every dream I had. We exceeded every dream together. I could not have done any of this without you. We make a good team, the best team." Willow curled into his side, her favorite position. "Vincent? Yes, thank you for protecting me. Not just that day in the gallery with Marcus, but every day since. You have kept my heart safe." Vincent kissed the top of her head. "And you protected mine. You showed me that I was more than my bank account, that I could be loved for who I am. You gave me the family I had always wanted. You saved me, Willow. We saved each other. Yes, we did." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, the same way they had been sleeping for 30 years. And in the morning, when they woke to face another day together, they knew that they would continue building their life and love story, one moment at a time. Because that was what forever meant. Not some distant endpoint, but a choice made every day, to love and be loved, to protect and be protected, to build something that would outlast them both. Willow had hired Vincent as her bodyguard without knowing he was a billionaire, without knowing that he would become the love of her life and the father of her children. But in the end, his wealth had been irrelevant. What mattered was the man beneath the money, the person who saw her and chose her and never stopped choosing her. And she had chosen him right back, every single day for 3 decades. That was the real success story, not the gallery or the businesses or the foundation. It was 2 people who found each other when they both needed saving, and who built a life so full of love that it overflowed onto everyone around them. They had protected each other's hearts, and in doing so, had created something truly beautiful. A legacy of love that would endure long after they were gone, in the art on gallery walls, in the students helped by scholarships, and most importantly, in the children and grandchildren who would carry forward the lessons they had learned. That morning in Maine, watching the sunrise over the ocean with Vincent by her side, Willow felt complete. The journey that had started with fear had transformed into joy. The bodyguard had become a husband, a father, a partner in every sense of the word. And she had become not just his protectee, but his equal, his love, his home. It was everything she had never known she wanted, and more than she had ever dreamed possible. And it all started with a phone call, a frightened woman, and a billionaire willing to pretend to be something he was not, just for the chance to protect someone who needed him. In the end, he had protected her heart forever, and she had protected his right back.